Hello everyone, we are back and this time on BL4. This will be a little breakdown of my melee Vex Deadringer build that is also able to play true melee without Groundbreaker. We are not using the forbidden crit knife or even bleed. But first off, I want to shout out Mobalytics. Mobalytics is a website that features many resources for many different games, and in our case, which is BL4, we have stuff like guides and a very detailed build planner that lets you break down a build and its mechanics in their entirety if one so wishes. It's really the best build planner I've ever used for any of these games and legitimately useful. This helps me and many other members coming from the BL3 community to keep their new BL4 shared knowledge and build guides in a detailed and easily accessible environment. So huge thanks to Mobalytics. A link to this video's build on the site is also in the description and the pinned comment. So let's move on to the build. This Vex build is focused on maximizing our melee attack power while having ranged melee access through her Roused. We'll also be making great use of Phase Covenant, Vex's passive skill, through our gun's elements to enhance our final damage through elemental multipliers. It can be played through melee, but is also adaptable, since switching to Spectres with Groundbreaker is available as an option for certain unreachable or otherwise annoying bosses. So let's start with our skill trees. We'll be using Deadringer, mainly with the Reaper summons. As said before, Spectres can be used for certain scenarios where pure melee truly becomes problematic. There are some notable interactions here. Vex's own melee damage, which will be quite high, will apply Cursed Blade to hit enemies. This includes melee damage from her Roused, but not from the Slippy Grenade. Cursed enemies will then receive a flat amount of extra kinetic status damage from gun and minion gun damage. With extra Cursed, that damage is amplified by 200% on critical hits, but even though it says that, minion melee damage will apply the 200% regardless if they crit or not. I suspect this is a sort of band-aid for Trobo and Reaper so they don't get massively overshadowed by Spectres when using this. After that, we have Reverberations, which will apply a 150% incendiary bonus element at 50% chance to Vex and her minions' melee attack. This skill is excellent because in practice, by being a bonus element and given a few nuances, it is acting as a damage multiplier in our formula. Finally, we have her Roused, which will give us ranged melee access. Some might not like this skill because of the fair reason where animations sort of interrupt the flow of things sometimes. In my opinion, it looks cool and enables a better non-Groundbreaker melee playstyle. And after that we have Pincushion, modifying her Roused so it throws 5 phase daggers at once. This amplifies the damage by a lot, and can get you some really nice and juicy crits, since the skill after all can naturally crit as long as you hit the crit spot. Deadringer, Cursed Blade and her Roused are all boosted by action skill and skill damage boosts, which is why in Red Tree we have Blood is Magic maxed, giving us insane value for a tier 1 skill. One thing of note, while you don't have some great cooldown gear, you might want to move the points from Grave Fiends into Grave Quickening, so you run less into awkward, no summons left types of situation. The rest of our skills are supportive or damage increases to our minions and Vex. Recurrence will be applied through both Vex and Reaper attacks, and through our specializations will result in an even larger melee damage increase. Obedient Fiends, Ancient Rites and Dianer are here for more Reaper damage, more effective cooldown cycling, and access to Dark Pact. Dark Pact, when paired with Coven and the Hellish Harvest augment, will give Vex and the minions a lot of sustain. Not just that, but Hellish Harvest can make the Reapers hit a lot harder than one expects. It also has good radius for its damage. Through semi-frequent Reaper summoning and Blood Sacrifice, we keep our kill skill of choice active while also refreshing Coven's HP regeneration effect. So, our gear. Pretty much any weapon works as long as you have good elemental coverage for Phase Covenant, which will apply to Vex's melee, her Roused, Slippy, and Groundbreaker. This is why I recommend having between 2 or 3 weapons that have the Maliwan licensed elemental switch. That gives you all the coverage you need, which is important for bosses. For the remaining slot, I recommend a strong underbarrel weapon in case you get downed, or more damage through utility, for example through this target marker underbarrel, which does apply to melee damage done afterwards. For a rep kit, Accelerator is one thing you want to have for sure, because of the cooldown. As for the second row, all damage dealt is ideal, but melee damage is also good. Splash might apply to Reaper melee attacks, I know skill tree Splash does, and Elemental wouldn't work with parts of our damage, but it's also an acceptable stat. For our grenade, we have the Slippy. Fish Slap returns and is weird, but still very good. It does not consume or trigger Groundbreaker, but stacks it. If you wondered, Haruspex behaves in the same way, so we have 2 melee damage sources that can actually build up Groundbreaker for our default knife melee attack. For our class mod and one of the stars of the build, we have Team Witch. This will give us insane sustain. Try looking for roles on the skills displayed here, with some special attention to Grave Thirst, which will help Reaper sustain. The green skill it can roll is kinda meh, so avoid it if you can. For passive rolls, you'll have a fixed lifesteal roll, so look out for a damage dealt roll like I have here, or melee rolls. Even gun damage will do something. Other rolls include gun status damage or just status damage, and possibly skill damage. The class mod's passive effect will also give us a lot of sustain damage, because our shield is the heavyweight. You want this with a mini Nova roll at the very least, I'd say. I don't know if a double Nova roll is possible, but that would be the best, if it exists. Try looking for as many elements of this shield you can find if they have the Nova rolls. This gives you extra damage and elemental coverage, and elemental combinations you can run for mobbing too. Team Witch will keep us topped off on armor almost always, letting us make free use of this legendary effect that increases our melee damage. For enhancements, there really isn't much that works for melee well, but you'll definitely want a weapon equip speed roll. For damage, gun or gun type status effect damage works, as well as splash if you're holding a splash weapon. These can all boost the damage of Cursed Blade and some of your other effects, of which I won't go into detail because it is an abysmal pasta sauce. For actual effects, I have this Mixologist because it works with the Spectres when I end up using them. It's not unlikely there's some hidden melee attack with some other enhancement effects, so keep an eye out for more information on that. As for firmwares, the one you really want is a real big fist. Paired with that, you can have 1 stack of GoJFC and Action Fist. You can also have 2 Action Fist and no GoJFC, but that's up to you, honestly. It won't make that much of a difference and the cooldown ends up being helpful. For our specializations, I have equipped here the most damaging setup, or at least the most damage enabling setup. But if you want more consistency, you should remove I Am a Gun and add Now with Caffeine. Of course this setup includes Groundbreaker, but if you don't want to use it, you can just remove it and add back I Am a Gun. That gives you the most damaging setup without Groundbreaker and good cooldown. Also, to use Spectres for bossing, you want to swap from Hellish Harvest to Wither. This will give you a big damage boost and the Spectres, which will potentially feed into bigger Groundbreakers. If you're using that, of course. You can also just not use it and have a normal fight, up to you. Alongside that, you can equip Riddle You This in place of I Am a Gun and still use that with Groundbreaker instead of Now with Caffeine. Spectres actually stack Riddle You This, so you get that nearly instantly with them, so that's pretty good. It is an option that you have once you unlock it. And that's it. I want to say thank you to everyone who's been involved in testing and figuring out Vex mechanics, especially in Girthquake's Discord server, who has enabled a very active community for this. So many thanks to Lazy Data, Icerod, Prismatic, CZ47, and Girthquake for any direct or indirect contributions. I'll be leaving you to some gameplay of the Radix vault without using Groundbreaker, and also the entire boss fight not using it, so you can see the build in action without its biggest damage boost. Have a nice day, and thank you for watching.